Hello, and welcome to Barbatus Catholic Podcast, a show where three Mexican dads talk about faith, life, and culture. We are your hosts,
Gustavo,
Ivan,
and Walter, and today we are going to talk about La Familia, the family. But first, a word from our sponsor. How can you teach your children to live their Catholic faith beyond the walls of your parish? One way is to engage your family's values in a Catholic healthcare option like CMF Curo. CMF Curo is an affordable Catholic healthcare ministry that's perfect for growing families and that's rooted in church teachings. CMF Curo members share medical burdens in community, have access to a spiritual director, concierge services, health and spiritual resources, and more. Learn more about CMF Curo at mycatholichealthcare.com. That's mycatholichealthcare.com.
when you said La Familia, it reminded me of Coco.
Right?
Me too.
Right?
Crazy.
Yeah. Dude, you know, I cried so hard the first time that I watched Coco.
That cute little kid with one dimple, like, stole
Dimple?
my heart.
No dimple.
Dimple? No dimple. I say that almost on a daily basis.
It only sings a song to Mama Coco at the end.
Oh, you.
Yeah.
The animation
always
on,
gets-
on
No,
Mama
to me,
Coco's
it's like
face
Poco
was
Loco.
I know.
crazy to me. Watch.
You make me un poco loco. Have you watched Coco in Spanish?
No.
I have. It's really
I
good.
haven't.
Marco Antonio Solís
I know.
is
El
Ernesto
Buki
de la
is-
Cruz.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, we were going to have to
Angélica
watch that.
Vale o Valle?
Vale.
Vale, ¿verdad? Es
La mamá.
Mamá Imelda.
Uh-huh.
And I think personally for me, the kid who does the voice in Spanish for
Mhm.
Miguel, I think he's better. Not that the other kid is not.
Yeah.
I mean, they're both
Yeah.
really good, but I think I like the Spanish one better.
I'm going to have to watch it. Please tell me that Eugenio Derbez is not in it.
No.
Wait, you
No,
know
he is. He's even in the English one too.
Eugenio Derbez?
Eugenio Derbez?
Yeah. The scene where it's at the end when I think it's when Pepita, the big ass thing,
Yeah.
knocks Ernesto de la Cruz.
Mhm.
What did I miss?
Like, what
Is
did
it-
I
is
miss?
it- is the guy
he's
with the
holding
elotes?
corn. Yeah, that's Eugenio Derbez. Dude, they had to get him in there.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know that.
He's always been like VO for Mexican dub movies ever since
Yeah.
Shrek, I think it was.
Dude,
He was the donkey in Shrek.
Shrek
Right?
in Spanish is so
I think
much
like
better.
he found his niche, right? It's like making
Yeah,
movies
totally.
for Latinos in the US.
Yeah.
That's a fun one. I'll just keep. Yeah, let's talk about Coco. Why not?
Keep this banter going.
Yeah, you know it was funny because when we were watching, I said like I was like tearing up. I was like, Diana, we need to go to Mexico. My grandma needs to meet the children. This and that. And so it's been 2 years since we've been to Monterrey, and but Coco had like a big impact to like wanting to go to show your kids the places where you're like, hey kids, this is the park where I was going when I was a kid. And Oliver and Amelia were like 3 and 2, so they were like, oh yeah, no, that's cool.
Oh,
Like we
wow.
won't remember this thing. Like, we had a lot of pictures for that.
Yeah.
So I think that it is a good movie. I think it's a good portrayal of Mexican culture to some extent.
Mhm.
There's a lot of mixture of things. Whether, I guess the disclaimer is like the portrayal of how they talk about the land of the dead and all of that is not a Catholic view of how we think of the afterlife or the eternal life, really. But doesn't mean that it's not a good movie. It's just, I feel like we had a couple people reach out, at least to Deanna and I, to be like, "Well, I don't want my kids to be confused about, we're Catholic and how the movie portrays like
Mhm.
the afterlife." And I'm like, "Well, yes, I get it, but it's like if you think about it, the mixture of the Aztec folklore and like I think there's like 3 levels of like this world, kind of like a limbo, and something else in the Aztec cosmology or whatever you want to call it. which, that's kind of like similar to what they did with the land of living, the land of the dead, and then the last, when someone stops remembering you, then you dissolve forever. So that might have been what they went through. But the thing that I keep coming back to is like the music, man. I like watched the special features, and the guy that do you remember the scene of the DJ at the party?
Mm-hmm.
It has a T-shirt that says "Give Cumbia a Chance."
Yeah,
I was like, I want that T-shirt. And it's a cameo of this Mexican music producer that his name escapes me right now. But he was one of like the consultants for the music. And you see like they spent like a week in Mexico City just recording like a trio with their, their little guitars. Se me olvida cómo se llama. El requinto.
El requinto.
Mm-hmm. And then, because like, to me, what does it is like when they start playing son jarocho, that is like such happy, vibrant music. If you can say "café con pan" to the sound of the song, that's like that's a good song. Café con pan, café con pan.
And also La Llorona, I mean, you go from like, really happy to like really sad.
And classics.
If you listen to La Llorona with like Chavela Vargas, it's like, oh, that lady was hurting. Yeah. She was drunk as like a sailor too. But yeah, I mean, all the I think the tradition aspect they got really good, in terms of like Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos, but also just like the attention to detail from every aspect. I mean, I look at it from a designer's perspective and an art director's perspective, and they left no stone unturned. Everywhere you look, something has a meaning, has something they base it on something. Even the computers, like they have computers and it's like the old like Mac ones or whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
But they gave it like a Mexican feel to it. I don't know. It's just it was really well done.
Dude, the scene with the chancla. It's like,
get my shoe.
I know.
Go get my shoe. It's pretty good. Okay,
so when you said La Llorona, it just reminded me of La Llorona.
Oh, yeah.
And were you afraid of La Llorona?
Oh, to this day.
El viejo del costal.
Oh, I hate La Llorona. El viejo del costal. When the movie came out, because you know how they made a scary movie?
Yeah.
And I saw the poster and the trailer, and I was like, nope. I'm not going to watch that.
Not because I'm afraid, because I choose not to watch it.
Dude, we need to
I'm a grown-up.
We need to make an episode on like urban myths. Of, like,
did you guys ever watch the La Hora Marcada?
No.
Oh man, La Hora Marcada was like Televisa's version of your typical horror show here in the States.
Really?
It was creepy.
Like Tales from the Crypt? Mexican version?
Yeah, no, it was more like thriller horror, not so gory.
Okay.
But it was... Yeah, dude, it would make your skin crawl.
Dude, there's so many ghost stories in Mexico. I feel like Mexico is the most haunted country.
That's an episode. That's an episode in and of itself. You could spend an hour.
What's the name of the guy that does all the UFO stuff? Jaime Maussan.
Jaime Maussan.
That's another episode in
and
of itself. Oh my goodness. Oh man, so many things that you just opened up and we could spend talking about.
My fault. Sorry.
That's fine. But the family. Let's
we're going from La Llorona to the family.
Exactly. Well, that's one of the tactics that moms used back in the day, that El Viejo del
and it worked. It totally worked.
I don't know. My mom didn't do that because she loved me, but
come on. What's funny? Like, was like this homeless man that would like always like walk by the block where my grandma's house was in Monterrey, and it is funny because it's like, si no te portas bien, te va a llevar el señor del costal.
Exactamente.
It's like if you don't behave, that man's gonna take you. And I wanted to, like, now as an adult, like I see that, and if I were that homeless man, I would be like, yo pa qué chingados quiero su hijo. Edúquelo.
Exactamente.
A mí no me metas.
It's like, this pedo entre ustedes, ¿no? Sorry, we're getting very crass in Spanish. If you speak Spanish, you're probably having a good laugh. If you don't speak Spanish, don't worry. You didn't miss any of the actual substance of the show. But Gustavo, why don't you get us into the topic?
Correct. So, La Familia, I think it's very important that we recognize the family, especially as Catholic families. We want to make sure that we are living life accordingly, so we are able to pass our traditions, our experiences, but primarily our faith to our children.
Mm-hmm.
So for this episode, I went back and reread Bishop Olmsted's Apostolic Exhortation, Complete My Joy, which is, if you haven't read it or heard it, it's worth your time. It was released in 2018, and it goes into a lot of detail, about the importance of the family, things that families can do together, how the role that the family plays, and it's beautiful. The quote that always comes to my mind when I hear about family is G.K. Chesterton. The most extraordinary thing in the world is an ordinary man and an ordinary woman and their ordinary children.
Mm.
That's beautiful, because in this day and age, it's families are kind of like take it or leave it. It's not something that it's as a given as it was, I don't know, 50 years ago. Right now the family, it's very loosey.
Anything can be
anything can be, exactly, or whatever. And while that's to some degree, depending on your particular situation, the family is says here, family is likely where we feel the deepest joy and the deepest pain.
Mm.
That's true, because for us that we have kids, it's like, yes, they're like an amazing happiness watching them be born, watching them take their first step, but I've never been more terrified than when my young daughter had like a fever that we couldn't control.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's so much responsibility, or that like gaping fear that when they told me, no, you got to take this baby home now. Like, huh?
Dude, when Lily was born, like, I think like 2 months leading up to when she was born, I was like so excited. I was like, man, I just want her to be here.
Uh-huh.
And then like we're getting her like room ready and build her crib. Everything. I'm like, man, I'm so excited. And then we're at the hospital. I'm so excited, and then she's born, and I'm like looking at her. I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's my child. And then it's nighttime, and everybody leaves, and then she starts crying, and I yell, and I'm like, and just this fear came over me, like I'm responsible for this human.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there was a point that I was like, I can't do this. What am I getting myself into?
Yeah.
And I'm like, Lord, like I need your help more than ever. Because I was so afraid for just like a few seconds. And then I'm like, all right, like she's crying. I got to pick her up and
figure it out.
Mm-hmm. It's scary.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Now that I read this today that I read this in the notes, talking about deepest joy and deepest pain, like right now I'm like, I have very raw feelings about deepest pains because it's been kind of a challenging week for us. Mateo's 2 weeks today, actually. And a couple other kids had fevers last night. So that was fun. So it was a rough night for everybody. Nobody slept well. And my mother-in-law left back for California today. So it's like the first day that we got like the kind of like the not the training wheels, because we've done it by ourselves in the past, but it's like adjusting to the new normal. So a lot of things happen at the same time. I was like, Lord, why do you try us like this? And it's like, I went up to Diana. I'm like, I'm going to try harder tomorrow, babe. I promise. Because,
do over.
Yeah.
Do over tomorrow.
I was hitting a wall today, dude, like hard. Like, well, we were talking before we hit record, right? It was like, ¿Para qué te casabas?
Te querías casar.
Querías hijos. Chíngese. Um, so yeah, it is. The highs are very high and the lows can be very low. Yeah, especially like when where there are losses in the
Mm-hmm.
families. There's always going to be crosses that we're gonna have to pick up and follow him, and those are the things that we find in the family, in the plan that God has for the family is for a reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's the image of the Trinity, the domestic church, and when I first heard about that, how like uh, the father and the mother in marriage resemble the love
Of the
of God
Father
the
and the
Father
Son. God the
and Jesus
Son.
Christ, that they love so much one another that love begets love, which is the
Mm-hmm.
children. I was just blown away by
Mm-hmm.
that. It is,
Yeah, it's beautiful because
yeah.
you gotta, in those lows, I think in those moments of fear, um, when you think about the role of the family in the church, um, it's it would be a lot more encouraging and would get us through those moments of fear or exhaustion or something, knowing that the family mimics the Holy Trinity. Just to put it in the same context, in the same space as the Holy Trinity, you're like, God, I can really step my game up here. You know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
easier said than done sometimes, but
Well, when you're exhausted, I told
exactly.
Diana, like, I need someone to write a book that is titled "How to Be a Saint When You Are Tired AF." Because I feel like I'm always like,
You should write the book.
Maybe you should write the
I
book.
know, wait
Mhm.
for it. Like now, I have 2 books in the project. It's like Baking with the Saints, a liturgical guide to treats and sweets, and How to Be a Saint When You're Tired AF.
Mhm. There you go.
Barbatus Publishing Company. We just keep adding things to the Barbatus. No,
We're trying to grow the brand.
sorry.
So another good note within the document says the bishop points out that in St. John Paul's the second exhortation from 1981, the role of the Christian family in the modern world, it states that the family has the mission to guard, reveal, and communicate love, and so become a living reflection of and a real sharing in God's love. That's kind of what I was harking to, where you're like, this is the role of the family, and if we all knew that to heart and we truly believe that there wouldn't be any broken homes.
Yeah.
Giving that importance and that like weight and that not so much responsibility but like honor is like, okay, God gave me this like tremendous gift to really carry through as a mission. I just think that's a beautiful thing to try to grasp.
And I've also heard, I don't know who, it might have been JB2 that said it, but that the family is where you first learn to belong. Like you first belong to someone or to something is in the family. It's where, I mean, you learn love, you learn joy, sadness, everything. So every human being has a right to that. That doesn't always happen, but just the fact that we all get to belong to something, I feel like that just, if you have that perspective, that has the power to change someone for the good.
Yeah. Yeah, like now that you just said that, I remember growing up, I thought that it was normal for everybody to like go to your grandma's house on Sunday to have lunch with all of your cousins. And then I found out that it's not. Like my mom comes from a family of like 10 siblings, and they had a really cool thing going on. Like when we were growing up as kids, that a family would cook for all of them, and we're talking like 30 people,
Mhm.
and we would just like go and eat and hang out, and it was like a 5 hour, 6 hour ordeal, just visiting and being together. And I was like just hanging out with my cousins, having a grand old time, and then getting home and forgetting that I didn't do my homework for Monday. So that's what it was. Just like watching Siempre en Domingo and then trying to do your homework.
Exactly. At like 10 o'clock at night, it's like,
Yeah.
huh?
It's like, ay, la estampa.
Apá, tengo que ir a la papelería.
Yes. That's a classic.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
um,
So it also states that the family is the littlest living cell of the church. And in terms of like the domestic church, you hit it right in the head, Ivan, when you said, yeah, that's where you first learn to belong, to be part of a community, to learn to love and to learn to forgive. And
mm,
it's our responsibility to, we're kind of like the pastors of our domestic church. So things that can um, put the safety or the security of our domestic church are a lot more prevalent now than they were before. Because of the internet and telephones, and
yeah.
that kind of like fragments families because everybody's like on their own device and whatnot.
That's so sad. The other day I was picking up food at a restaurant, and there was a family sitting down and at the restaurant, and they all had food in front of them. There was 5 of them, and all of them were like a feet from each other, and every single one of them was on their phones, doing their own thing and eating, like not having a conversation. I'm like, it was
Yeah, it's
so
weird.
bizarre to see that. And I mean, I say that, but I'm guilty of like the same thing that sometimes I need to put my phone away or leave it in a different room altogether
Mhm.
to be present. And I think we talked about it in
Yeah,
another
I do
episode,
too. Totally.
that, just giving your children your presence
And undivided attention.
instead of presence.
Hmm.
That makes the whole difference. Um, I saw this quote that you have of Sister Lucia,
Hmm.
and it's kind of chilling. It says the final battle um,
The Lord.
between the Lord
Mhm.
and the kingdom of Satan will be about marriage in the family, and we are already in that right now. We are living that. Because one of the things that I think that when we make it to heaven, we're gonna be greeted by, other saints. Are gonna be like, "Oh, you lived in the 21st century, man.
Yeah.
You guys had it rough." You know,
Mis respetos.
I know. Yeah. So every era is gonna need different saints because of different things that are happening in the world, and I think that one of the reasons why we started this podcast is to um, share what we have seen and we have experienced. Number one, we're pretty much beggars telling
Mhm.
others where we found bread. But one of the main things is inspiring other men to step up. And we cannot stress it enough. We probably say it every other episode. Man, you need to step up. If
Mhm.
you're single and you're considering to have that you have a vocation to marriage, you need to be the holiest husband that you can be. Need to be the holiest father that you can be. If you're gonna be a priest, be the best priest that you can be. Religious or whatever else you're being called to. We need holy families,
Mhm.
and we are, like Gustavo said, we are the first line of defense um, for our families. Satan has to go through you as a father to get to your family.
Exactly.
If you are well equipped to repel those attacks from the enemy, you should be fine.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, quick little tip when you touched on people discerning, uh, marriage or religious life. If you're single and have your eyes set on being married one day and being a father, um, quick little tip: pray for your future wife, even if you haven't met her yet. Pray for her. And if there are any ladies listening, the same. That was one of the things that my wife did for me when she didn't know me. She prayed for her future husband, and it was beautiful for me to know that, and I only wish I could have had the same foresight as she did. But it makes a whole lot of a difference. I'm sure she kept me from many mistakes with her prayers, even though she didn't know me. So just quick little tidbit there. Pray for your future spouse from this day forth.
Diana did the same thing. She did a novena to Saint Anne,
Mm-hmm.
and the day that she finished the novena, her friend, now she is Lucia's godmother, was like, "Hey, I have a guy that I want to introduce you to."
Oh, no kidding. Wow.
Saint Anne doesn't fail.
There you go.
I'll have the details of the novena for those women who are listening who are interested. Let's talk about the covenant of marriage, since we're on that topic, kind of. So there are 3, what do we call it, tenets or qualities of the covenant of marriage. It has to be free, faithful, and fruitful. And I do love how the Diocese of Phoenix does marriage prep. I mean, at least how they did it almost 7 years ago when Diana and I were going through that. Because these are the kinds of things that, if you don't know them, you might be like not knowing how much of a serious thing you were getting into, right? Mainly because of like the vision of the world in terms of marriage, which is, let's live together, let's hang out, see how things are going. Things are very like fuzzy. I guess one of the things that I would tell the guys, if you're dating or dating age, is like define the relationship, be intentional. Don't be wishy washy. If you're not like into someone, it's like don't lead, don't waste people's time.
Yeah.
But being free, faithful, and fruitful, it is key for any marriage to work, because the free willing is it's being there through thick and thin, sickness and in health, for better or worse. Faithful, there's no quitting the team, so you have to work it out. And fruitful, if God gives that couple the blessing of having children, yes, that is something that it has to be received with open arms. There are couples that struggle with fertility and all that, and that's a cross in and of itself. But just being open to life, well, I can just talk from personal experience, but it is something that just makes your life like way more joyful. Complete my joy.
Yeah, definitely. The fruitful part is something that also is in today's culture. Other than people like you said that struggle with infertility and stuff like that. But a lot of young couples choose not to have children. And if you're Catholic, I think that's something you really need to take to a spiritual director or to a priest and really bring that to the Lord, because the purpose of marriage and that union, that's one of the 3 tenets, right? To fruitful,
faithful and fruitful,
faithful, fruitful, freely faithful and fruitful. So, that's the purpose of marriage. Goes back to the Trinity. It's not like God the Father and God the Son decided, like, you know what? I don't think the Holy Spirit's a good idea. You know?
Yeah.
No, that's the essence of it. That's the Holy Trinity. You can't just pick and choose it. I think marriage is the same. So if this kind of like stung you the wrong way, I apologize. But it's something that definitely needs to be spoken, you know, because if both of you are in the same boat and you don't want kids, well, and you are able to,
It's between the
it's a
couples and
conversation.
God, Gustavo. How dare you?
it's a conversation that needs to happen.
We're called to be fruitful. You can't just be a veggies guy.
Good job, Ivan.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
I didn't
moment of
coin that,
levity.
but I heard that.
Yeah,
Like, can't be a veggies guy. You gotta be fruitful.
Oh,
there you go. Thanks for breaking the ice there a little bit.
I know. We were
I know,
getting,
it's
Got a little heavy.
It's
Yeah.
getting too heavy. But I agree with you.
and you know, here's the thing. Like, you know, there is always going to be this sense of awe, I would say, because all the people that I've told, like, oh, we're having our fourth child, and they're like, oh, your hands are full. And I'm like, yeah, that doesn't begin to explain it. I was like, yeah, but I guess the thing that I try to remember to myself is like, okay, I am pretty much like a spokesperson for the church. So I need to be very aware of how I communicate. It's like,
Mhm.
yeah, for a child, yes, it is difficult, but it is something that that my wife and I decided. And because some people are going to be like, well, you're so egotistic that you want to make mini replicas of you, this and that. And, you know, my kids, they kind of look like me. And I'm not going to lie, that's pretty good for the ego. But then they act like me, and I'm like, okay, Lord,
Dang
I get it. Yeah, like
Thanks, Lord.
Yeah, there's other things that I need to fix in my personality that I'm passing on to my children. So it's,
Dude,
you know.
that's Nayeli's beef with the Lord is that Pia and Lily look like me, but but Lily has Nayeli's attitude, and Nayeli's like, dang it.
Like, yeah. So, you know, in a way, that's like there's a sanctification that is happening through having of the children. This is like the erosion of the water that is passing through you as a rock and forming you into like it's. I was reading this reflection on Genesis and how, you know, the Grand Canyon was not formed in a day. It took like millennia of layers and layers of sand and rock, sediment on top of each other, and then the force of the water going through it to make that majestic thing that we have here in Arizona. So just like that is like the waters of baptism is like what enters our life into that, and the living water of Christ in our life, it's what going to sculpt us into a Grand Canyon of a human being, you know?
Exactly. That's a great thought
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah, thank you. It was
Dang.
not mine. It's Exodus 90.
There you go.
Well, not Exodus 90, but the Reflection Oasis thing that they have.
That's pretty good.
Pretty recommendable, by the way. Couple other things that we need to talk on is like, don't try to go at it by yourself.
Exactly.
We're gonna need community, especially, you know, if you're trying to revive Catholic culture in society. Can't be an island, just like a man cannot be an island. Families cannot be islands. Even though, you know, when you have enough children, they can entertain themselves, but they also need other children to hang out.
Yeah, that's one that I, you know, that you can't do this by yourself. That's something that I really take to heart. I've had a conversation like this with one of my good friends, and we just talk about
What good friend? I'm just kidding.
Wait,
You mean it's not me?
you have other friends?
I do, but I love you guys.
Do you have a podcast with them too?
No, although I would like to have him on the podcast. He's Ryan Ayala. You know who Ryan Ayala?
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah, good guy. We were talking about how I think it was we had Lily, and we were thinking about when we buy a house, like where we want to move. And for me, I mean, I grew up around St. Joan of Arc, and then the people that I've gotten to know at St. Joan of Arc who have solid families, like you, Walter, you, Gustavo, and I always thought, and Ryan told me, he's like, yeah, like I like my wife and I want to raise our kids, and we want other good families to raise our kids with us. And I was like, dude, I feel the same way.
Yeah.
So when we're thinking about like moving or something, I'm like, man, I don't want to move away from St. Joan of Arc, because it really does take a village to raise a child.
Mm-hmm.
And we're surrounded by so many good, solid Catholic families that, man, like this is what I want for my family.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
The world is so crazy out there, but like I just want what's best for my family, and I just want to surround them with good people.
Yeah.
And this oasis on 38th Street and Greenway.
and that kind of like brings it full circle. We started talking about the family, and this is a podcast of three Mexican guys. And in Mexican culture, the multi-generational family is very, very common, and I think it's very, very useful. My grandma lived with us for, I don't know, a greater part of my life. And you have like aunts that live really close by, and you help each other out, and you learn different interactions by looking at different people growing up. And that's something that I do miss in terms of like Mexico, to have that family aspect of it. Not that my direct family isn't like enough, it is, but that experience of like growing up with like your grandma and with like your tias, and that everybody just like in your cousins and stuff like that, it does something for a kid, and it really enriched my life for sure. And keeping with the theme of like Mexican families, keeping the Lord's Day holy, make sure that having Sunday be a day of family. That was something that we did, I think, instinctually when I was growing up. Every Sunday. I mean, the sun couldn't be a little bright on a Sunday because my mom would have to throw something on the grill and have us gather.
Wait, was your mom the grill master?
No, well, have means that she would have somebody else do it, one of her kids.
Oh, got it.
But she just like loved the fact that it's like, okay, turn on the grill, put some beer, and call everybody. And it was like everybody would come over, and we would have like you were mentioning, just like everybody over and
like
and make it a day, family meals, and háblale a tu tía, everybody would be welcome, and potluck, and it would just be a grand old time. And this was like every weekend, that's my mom's favorite thing, carne asada, to have a carne asada, not because of the food, but just because of the food, but primarily because the gathering.
It's really ritualistic. Like, my mother-in-law was with us for like 6 weeks, and thanks be to God for her. She really is a lot of help when she's around. And the last weekend that she was here, she casually mentioned if I would be willing to grill. And Deanna knows that it's like, I don't necessarily enjoy because we just use charcoal. We don't have a propane grill. So
you say that as if it was a bad thing.
Well, that's not a bad thing, but like
you just offended Gustavo.
I know. But Gustavo, he grills with mesquite wood, and then makes it. He makes his own charcoal, basically.
Yeah.
Kills the cow, skins it.
But carnicerias are like a godsend on that sense.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
So I think that my mother-in-law was testing how much I love her.
Uh-huh.
Like, would you grill?
You should have called me, dude.
Well,
You should have been like, "Oh, you want me to grill? I can grill." And like, dude.
you know.
Gustavo, can you grill? And I would be like, all over.
But I sent you pictures of.
You did. That looked pretty
good.
legit.
It's not Don Taco, but it was.
Whatever. That looked delicious.
It looked
It
so
was-
good.
I mean, they tasted pretty good.
Mhm.
But that little sacrifices that in the end are going to be delicious repercussions for you as well. You get beneficiated. So just like let get some vitamin D and turn on the grill.
Mhm.
Go get some carne asada and make some tacos for your family, and then enjoy them together.
Mhm.
Just to wrap it up, we talked about a whole bunch of things, but I guess that the main point that we want to make is we need to save the family. We need to make those bonds and interactions stronger, just because we are under attack, basically. I do
That's true.
remember when I was in middle school, there was like a oratoria. How do you say that in English? Like when
Yeah,
you're-
like a
you-
a recital, maybe.
like speeches
Yeah.
for fun.
Uh-huh.
And one of the topics was like the family, the
Mhm.
building block of society.
Of society.
And I still remember that to this day. That I was like, yeah, that was one of the things that stuck with me. That it is the building block of society. So it is all of our responsibility to build something beautiful, build the kingdom here on earth.
And it is hard. We're not gonna lie. It is a challenge. It's
Right.
hard, but anything hard, it's worth doing. And it's
worth
it
doing
only,
well.
and it's worth doing well, and it only enriches your experience as a person. It only like makes you love more if you sacrifice more. It just like expands your heart. 5 kids expand the heart a lot.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think it shows your mettle, as a man, to show up every day, to really step up and educate your kids, not just provide for them and give them what they need to survive, but really love them and enrich their hearts and enrich their minds and teach them the faith and take them to confession and go with them to mass and read Bible stories with them and play games with them, even though it's not fun for you. And
In other words, thrive, not just survive.
exactly, because we were made for greatness.
Yes.
Saint Benedict,
Saint Benedict
already
the
gave-
16. You were
Yeah.
not
Pope
made
John-
for comfort.
You were made for greatness, and that's what greatness takes. And we're all in the same boat. I think we're all in it together. Pray for us. We're definitely praying for you, for strong fathers and
A strong family.
strong families.
Strong like bull.
Strong like bull.
Strong like bull.
Amen.
Amen.
And with that, we want to thank you for listening to this episode of Barbatus Catholic Podcast, the show where 3 Mexican dads talk about faith, life, and culture. If you like the show, please consider subscribing to the podcast, sharing it on social media, leaving a rate and review on Apple Podcasts, and recommending it to your friends and family. And if you didn't like it, well, just keep it to yourself and let others make their own mistakes. Or if you don't like someone, just recommend them the podcast. You can follow us on Instagram at Barbatus Catholic Podcast. Send us an email at hello@barbatuscatholicpodcast.com. On the web, we are at barbatuscatholicpodcast.com, where you'll find the show notes for this episode and more. And yeah, save the family, save the world. Bless us, Alanis Casey.
Pray
Pray
for
for
us.
us.
Until the next time.